Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to Garbaugust 2023. This is an unholy, entirely unsanctioned, and unhealthy BookTube event created by Ollie at Criminali. He's assembled a large group of ne'er-do-well booktubers, and we are celebrating trash throughout the month of August. We are celebrating, reading, talking about, overestimating all of the books that you shouldn't be reading. It is an absolute delight. Absolute delight. There are all sorts of peripheral stuff involved in Garbaugust 2023. There's a bingo card. There are weekly prompts. I'm not sure. Off the top of my head, I don't remember the prompts. Bad co-host that I am. So I don't know if I'm following them or not. But I think all of my garbage co-hosts would agree that if you read a little trash, mix a little trash into your reading diet for August, you're participating in Garbaugust, and God have mercy on your soul. And I am doing that very much. I have thrown myself into Garbaugust, so I am reading trash every night, intentionally. Now, keep in mind, I am a working book critic. So I am also reading lots of trash unintentionally. I'm reading lots of stuff that doesn't think it's trash. I'm reading lots of stuff that thinks that it's saving the country. And it's absolute fly-blown gorgonzola. Just awful. At least a lot of the Garbaugust trash that I'm adding to my reading diet every night is relatively self-aware. Right? I've gone over that when we've discussed what trash is just recently, and also last year. I've gone over the fact that it really helps if the author is in on the joke, or at least partially open to the idea of being in on the joke. And that was certainly true with the piece of trash that I read last night. I want to talk about today. It was a 1960 novel by an author named John B. West. And this cannot possibly be the author, John B. West, that I once knew, even though the publication timing of the book almost makes me want to read it. It cannot possibly be. I have found that in reading garbage for 2023, it's actually been increasing my enjoyment if I don't research the author. If I try to figure out who they are from the book. I've been reading a lot more trash than I've been making videos about. I mean to change that because I'm going to need to slow down making videos anyway. For the rest of August, I'm absolutely going to have to do that. I don't see a way around it. I didn't research this author, so I don't know. I once knew an author named John B. West. This cannot possibly be the same person. But I'm talking about his 1960 opus, Bullets Are My Business. And there we have our main, I assume, our main character, Rocky Steele, who's an ex-boxer. He's gigantic. He's what the pulp writers always refer to as two-fisted. He likes the dames, and he likes their legs nice and long. He thinks absolutely nothing of breaking the law, absolutely nothing of committing personal violence at all times. Even if you don't really have it coming, if it just crosses his mind, he'll belt you. He doesn't appear to ever be in danger of anything. Maybe it's just that he's punching the right people or the wrong people. But he has a kind of private eye business. He doesn't seem to care much about it, and he certainly doesn't seem any good at it. But I guess two-fisted, man's man, gin for breakfast, private eyes in trash fiction who aren't any good at their job are fairly canonical, right? At this point, they are by far the majority of the tradition, not the exceptions. I won't mention Sam Spade here because I know that some of you have extremely weepy soft spots, so I will just say, typically speaking, when you actually program out the actions and the intuitions of the two-fisted male private eyes from, I mean, this is 1960, but it's essentially a 1930s book. They're not very good at what they do. I know that you could say the same thing, and people have said the same thing about, for instance, Lord Peter Wimsey, but they've even said it about Sherlock Holmes. God help us. Anyway, he's sort of minding his own business. He's idling away an afternoon with his girl when a client comes in out of the rain. So Margaret Honeywell comes in out of the rain with a letter that her husband has received. And it's terrifying her and her husband. The letter is from a man named Michael Holliday, And the letter is quite stark. It is explicitly threatening Mr. Holliday with death. And the writer of the letter, Michael Holliday, is I should say Mr. Honeywell. Michael Holliday claims to be the writer of the letter, and he is threatening Mr. Honeywell with death. And also his wife with death. He's saying, I'll kill her first because I want you to suffer most of all. Because 22 years ago, you led me to the edge of an icy precipice when we were on the brink of a great deal in business. And you pushed me off 1,000 feet to my death. But I did not fall 1,000 feet. I only fell to an ice ledge below your view. I mangled one of my arms, but I lived. I crawled out of the Reichenbach, this icy crevasse. And now, after 22 years, I want my revenge. I intend to take my revenge. Now, Mrs. Honeywell, Margaret Honeywell, is also a cool drink of water. I honestly don't think that John Steele would even notice. Rocky Steele, I don't think he would even notice a client if the client weren't gorgeous. That's another endemic flaw of these stupid, two-fisted, bourbon for breakfast, private eye books that guys just love. Guys somehow think that this is the bee's knees, just the way to be. Oh, God, I wish I could be that cool. That's absolutely ridiculous. But another quality that they share in common is that they are so sexist that I don't think that they can even see a paying client unless the paying client has curves all the way down to the ground, if you know what I mean. So Rocky Steele goes, of course, to talk to Mr. Honeywell. It's all well and good for him to send his womenfolk with a letter, but you got to, well, if you want the straight dope, pal, you got to talk to the man involved. And he does. So I hope you are buckled in for some deathless prose. We're going to read about a little of his. The scene goes on forever. All the scenes in this book go on forever. I don't know how he managed it, because this is not a long book. This is 125 pages long. And yet all the scenes go on forever. Every scene feels like it's 10 pages long. Let's see here. They will never capture Holiday, he said slowly. So Mark Carson, that's the name that Holiday has been taking in the meantime, was Michael Holiday. That's strange. I don't suppose I should have recognized him, but it has been so long since I'd seen him, and I'd never even thought he could be alive. It was 2,000 feet to the bottom. Pardon me, I thought it was 1,000. It was 2,000 feet. It was 2,000 feet to the bottom. The last part sounded like he was talking to himself, and then he fell silent for a moment. Suddenly he broke out in the weirdest laughter I ever heard, a cackling sort of noise that went on and on until I slapped him in the kisser and almost knocked him out of the chair. His head snapped back, and the laugh quit like somebody pulled a switch. Somebody didn't pull a switch, you Cro-Magnon. You punched him. He buried his face in his hands and trembled from stem to stern. Probably because he's deciding to call a cop, have you prosecuted for assault, and find another PI, one who doesn't punch him. What can you tell me about this Mark Carson or Holiday? I asked him. I guess you're talking to him still? He just punched you. Anyway, I guess there isn't much that will help. He is about 68, just my age. He's about 2 inches taller than I am, but when I knew him, he was much thinner than I was. People called him Doc Holliday because he resembled the famous Arizona killer. Lifted that out of an encyclopedia, didn't you? That's just how someone would talk. Because he looked like Doc Holliday. No, because he looked like the famous Arizona killer. But he's dead. I saw him fall, and it was 2,000 feet to the shelf below. It can't be Doc Holliday. He tried to mean it, but it didn't gel. He didn't act like he believed it himself, and it figured he was trying real hard to be like Kid whistling in the dark. It can't be Doc, he kept saying. Then he got up and went quick to the window, closing it, but standing well off to the side as he did it. He turned back to me. You say you are a policeman, he blurted out. Then stay here in this house and protect me. I need protection, and I'll pay you well. Anything you ask, only stay here and keep him away from me until they catch him. Is that too much to ask? I'll pay you well, he repeated. That little yellow bastard. The letter said his wife was next, but all he wanted to do was save his own hide. I gave him my answer. That ain't my kind of job, Mr. Honeywell. I'm gonna be out there hunting for this Mark Carson alias Doc Holliday, and I'm gonna find him. And when I do, I'm gonna make him wish he died on that ledge 22 years ago. The murdering SOB. You want to know what I got planned for him? Not really. You bench pressing psycho? His mouth stammered, "Oh no," but he got it anyway. He was shrinking back deeper into the chair by the minute. Oh, he sat down again? I could feel it running over. I hadn't felt that way since Norma Carteret had got it in the belly. I was killing mad, and it showed all over. You ever seen a SOB with a rope around his neck? Not just hanging. That's too easy. Too quick. No. A little rope, just tight enough to keep him from breathing. Just enough to make his tongue come out bit by bit, getting darker all the time. Watching his eyes push out. Watching him struggle against the little piece of cord that's killing him by inches. Yeah, slow. It gives an SOB like Holiday time to think about all the things he's done wrong. I'm going to give him plenty of time. Yeah, plenty. I shook off my hatred long enough to look at Honeywell again. His hands were around his neck, and he cowered so deep in the chair he looked like a part of the upholstery. What the hell is wrong with you? I snapped. You look like... That's how Doc Holliday killed a prospector back in Alaska, he stammered, cutting in before I quit talking. My God, Steele, if that's the what he does to me... Oh, no! His hands stayed in his throat, and his face was about as pale as old clay until I slapped him again and knocked some sense into his head and some color back into his pan. So you just keep pounding on this guy who's paying your bill. And he isn't offended. He doesn't tell you to leave the room. He doesn't call for the police. He ain't gonna get near you, I snarled. He's mine. All mine. Reeves came in just then, his iron-gray shock of hair bristling. What on earth are you trying to do? He shouted at me. Scare him to death? I looked him over. Yeah, right size, little taller than the old man, right hair and brown eyes, but no crooked arm or scarred face. Because Rocky Steele is seeing the murderer of that Carteret woman everywhere. Like I told you many times, I got female hormones in my blood, and I ain't never been accused of being a pansy, but I must have them, because sometimes I get intuitions. Great. Lovely. I got one right then. Reeves's dark eyes darted out from one place to the other, never coming to rest, but he couldn't look me in the eye. That SOB knew more than he was telling us, and I was going to get it out of him if I had to knock his teeth out one by one. So as you can see, our boy Rocky has anger management issues. They continue throughout the book. At the halfway point, he meets a sultry songbird, a chanteuse from the wrong side of the tracks. And the book practically has gigantic neon arrows pointing at her as the mastermind behind the whole thing. Practically neon arrows. Now, I'm assuming that because those neon arrows were so prominent that was John B. West's intention, for the reader to see something that Rocky Steele doesn't see. But Rocky Steele is a knuckle-dragging moron. He doesn't see anything. So why you would need to do that, I don't know. It ends up spoiling the book, because you would have to be as dumb as a brick not to know that she's behind it all. And once you know she's behind it all, everything else falls into place. And you know that her sultry good looks are going to blur our hero's instincts just long enough for them to have a climactic scene together. A scene that proves that John B. West has no idea how firearms work, and no idea how traumatic injury works at all. He seems to think that if you get shot, let's say in the leg, or I don't know, once in each leg, he seems to think that if you get shot and the bullet doesn't hit a major blood vessel, your femoral artery or something like that, then the wound won't bleed, and it'll be just like a little hole going through you, like you were a clay doll. Like, maybe this author never scratched his thumb in his life. If you get shot, you're going to bleed a lot. You're, in fact, going to bleed out, unless you get medical help, whether you hit an artery or not. That climactic scene is unintentionally hilarious, because Rocky Steele is quite literally the last person anywhere involved in this book to suspect this one. But in the meantime, we get all of his adventures as he is jumped and he jumps other people. And you'll notice from that passage that I read something else that's unintentionally funny about this book, which is the title. Rocky Steele never seems to think that bullets are his business. When he meets someone, he's going to punch them out one teeth at a time. When he tortures someone, he's going to do it with a noose. When he kills someone, he's going to do it with a knife. He almost never talks about bullets being his business. So I don't know what the title's about, other than it being a fairly good, dumb, trash title. But okay, I was going to say on the positive side, there isn't anything positive. This is a dumb waste of time. But this old paperback held up well. And this paperback is, what, 60 years old. And it held up really well. I could easily read this again. I won't. Not for all the dames in Chinatown, bub. But I could easily do it. So there you go. That is my trash pile. My trash pickup for today is Bullets Are My Business by an author I have not looked up. I almost don't want to know. There's no chance that this is the John B. West that I knew. I'm sure that John B. West as an author name is common. This cannot be the person that I knew and that lived up the street from here. It cannot possibly be. Although, continuing the trend of trying to extrapolate what the author is like from what the book is like, I'm going to assume that this author was extremely well educated and knew firsthand literally nothing about the demimonde in which Rocky lives and makes his being. I'd be willing to bet that this author never punched anybody, was never punched, certainly never held a gun in his hand, had never been to the wrong side of the tracks, certainly wouldn't know what to do with a sultry chartreuse. I'm going to guess that this author is fairly effete. This seems like too much like ignorant pandering. Could be wrong about that. Maybe I'm just inadvertently describing the John West that I knew. Well, you don't expect a Garbaugust video to end with a recommendation, right? This one doesn't. I don't expect that any of mine will. But I'm trooping along because boy, oh boy, was it fun. It was so much fun to do in an inadvertent way. I was laughing the whole time, which I wasn't doing with, for instance, yesterday's trash pile, the James Hadley Chase book. I wasn't laughing at the book. I was eagerly turning pages when I was reading that. I was eagerly turning pages with this too. It's extremely addictively written, but it's also funny. I mean, it can't help but be. I mean, the title is Bullets Are My Business. The main lout, who is supposed to be our hero, wouldn't recognize a bullet out of a police lineup. And so on and so forth. But that's my trash pickup for today. We'll see how I fare tonight. I'm going to add something right now. I will see you next time. Thank you.